Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2024 Q&A on moving to France. I can't believe we are in the last month of the year. It's crazy. It's also like midnight at 7 o'clock. My name is Allison Grant Lunes. I am the owner of the relocation agency Your Transformation. We help people to get the right visa and do the right admin to follow their dream of moving to France. I also run the group Americans in France on Facebook. We have about 21,000 members. I'm the author of the book Foolproof French Visas, which this is the fifth edition of the book, the fifth version that's come out, the 2024-2025 edition, available on Amazon or on our website. I will give you the link to that at some point tonight in case you want to check it out. And I'm really glad to have you here today. So we're going to go ahead and get started on all of your questions about moving to France that you have submitted. I am going to go in order. And I just want to remind you too that because this is a free event open to the public, we're not able to get really in depth into people's personal situations. Usually we're limited to 1 to 2 questions per person, which is how many questions fit on the question submission form. If you do have more questions, I am available for individual 1 hour consultations that are paid. And during those, we can go more in depth into your personal situation and my specific advice for you and develop a plan and things like that. And then that fee can be applied to any of our packages if you do end up wanting to work with us. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our questions for this evening. Find one of the many, many Google tabs that I have open. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Coralie from Australia asks, what documentation will I need to produce to rent a home, and will it need to be translated? Typically, it depends a little bit on who your landlord is, whether or not they want documents that are translated. If you have a guarantor, if you're using a lease guarantee service, we can certainly recommend you to one. We're actually going to do a webinar later this month with Esther Simone of Let's Get Franced, and she works with many of our clients on the housing piece because we don't cover housing with our clients. We don't do any rental searches or real estate or anything like that. So we can certainly introduce you to her, and I would encourage you to attend that webinar as well. Let me look at my calendar and tell you when it is. It is next Tuesday, December 10th at 7 p.m. France time, so same time as tonight. And we'll be talking about everything related to rentals. It's free, it'll be recorded if you need to watch the replay. And yeah, so if you're already on our mailing list, which I think most of you are, to sign up to come here, you should be getting an email about that. It will be linked in Wednesday's newsletter. Now, in terms of documentation, typically you're going to need proof of income, and a lot of times rental agencies will ask for things like pay slips and a work contract and things like that that you're not going to have. And so actually the biggest challenge of trying to find a place to rent is targeting landlords and agencies where they are willing to work with foreigners who might not have all the like typical documentation that a French person might have. My children will be 7 and 4, starting school in September 2025. What class will they be in? And is this typically in the same location or school grounds? So yeah, usually, so it looks like your older child will be, yeah, in CE2, CE1 maybe, and your younger child will be in Grande Section. So one will be in maternelle and one will be in elementary, but typically the schools are right next to each other. So it'll be 50 meters away, and the schools are connected inside. Brian, we are a 50-year-old gay couple. We are not ready for retirement, so we will need to work remotely for American employers and/or self-employment consulting, for example, from France. What kind of visas will we need? So you'll need likely need one of the self-employment visas. So it is technically possible if you have a US company that employs you, it is technically possible for them to sponsor you for a temporary work contract in France. Most companies, I'm going to be totally honest, are not willing or able to do the legwork required for that type of situation. They're just not equipped to set you up the way you would need to be set up and paid with your social charges paid in France. So typically the solutions we find with our clients, and we work with a lot of people in situations like this, is either they're setting up a French entity, so the French entity can employ them. That is useful if you have an activity where you may deduct a lot of business expenses, especially if you may have travel expenses, things like that. And so you pay yourself a salary from your French company, or we set you up as self-employed. You declare your income on a monthly basis. You pay about 26% off the top. That's your healthcare, your retirement contributions and things like that. So it depends a little bit on the level of income, the number and amount of expenses you're going to have. But the most important thing to keep in mind is if you are living in France and you are working while you're in France, you are working in France. That means you need to have a visa that enables you to do so. It means you need to be able to set up to pay social charges on that income because according to the tax treaty, according to any tax treaty, when you live and work in France, France has the right to tax your earned income first. That means subjecting it to social charges and income taxes. If anyone is telling you to get a visitor visa in order to work from France, you need to ask them if they're willing to pay your social charge bill when you get it a couple years down the line. I have lots of thoughts on that topic. But yeah, you need to be able to be declaring your income, paying your social charges, paying your income taxes to France first. And that requires having the right visa and a setup that enables you to work and pay social charges in France. Given the answer to that question, what kind of French healthcare are we eligible for? So there's only one kind of French healthcare. Everybody, even if they're not working, can get on the system after 3 months of residing regularly in France. So the way that you apply or the way that you register to the system is slightly different depending on whether you're working or not. So if you are self-employed, then actually the process of setting up the self-employment activity will begin the process of getting you into the French healthcare system. If you have a French company and eventually you're going to be a salaried employee of that company, then the process of registering the company doesn't do anything until you're paying yourself a salary. So in that case, we need to send in a separate application showing that you're going to be working for this company and that eventually it will be paying social charges on your behalf. So the modalities of getting onto the French healthcare system vary a little bit, but the process should be started by 3 months after your arrival at the very latest. Linda, I want to spend 2 to 3 months of the year outside of France. Will this impact my ability to get my visa renewed? Not necessarily, but you have to be a little bit careful for a couple of reasons. One is depending on what visa type you have, there is more or less French admin to do during the first year, and you really need to make sure that you are in France enough to do all of it or as much of it as you can. Because if things do not get done, if you register for the French healthcare system, but you're not there to receive mail that you need to respond to, your file is going to get closed and you're going to have to start all over. If you have a visa type that requires you to go to multiple visits with OFI and you're traveling and you're not able to go to all of those visits, you're either not going to have your visa renewed or you're going to not get a multi-year card when you otherwise could have because you haven't been able to do those visits. So it depends a little bit. Your flexibility, especially during the first year, depends a little bit on the visa type that you have. The second thing I want to point out is that you really need to make sure that even if you are absent from France, that you are maintaining your residence in France, and that means that you're not ending a lease. You're paying, you're continuing to pay rent on whatever place you have a lease for. If you can have somebody check your mail, that would be ideal because you might get mail from different French administrations, again, depending on what admin you have going on at a particular time. Now, a lot of the admin now is done by email or online, and if we're handling things for our clients, like most of the stuff will come into a shared email box that gets set up. But you really want to make sure that there aren't any gaps in where you reside. So don't end your lease, just you're going on vacation for a short period of time. Do you foresee any changes to France's visa policy in the future due to the increased demand for visas coming from America? Um, no, we are not the types. the clients that we help are not the type of people that, are causing changes to France's immigration policy, let's put it like that. I would say that if there is significant increased demand, we might see more rejections. I mean, I think overall there are more visa applications being rejected. They're not being as generous in their interpretation at the moment. I've noticed a lot more rejections happening. We've had one or two of our clients that we've had to reapply for, which used to never ever happen. Applications that used to sail through even a year ago, we're beefing up a lot more and making sure there's lots more supporting documentation and supporting evidence of their project, their resources, whatever, to make sure that we're not having any issues. Because the thing is that France's current ministers, both the Minister of the Interior and the Prime Minister, are not super pro immigration. The far right has gained a little bit more power. They want to re implement or try to pass certain elements of the 2024 immigration law that were rejected by the Constitutional Council. And so overall, there's a little bit of an anti-immigration theme, and there's nothing specifically targeting Americans. I don't think there will be, but that being said, the consulate used to reach out if it wanted an additional document. Now they'll just reject a file. If you don't provide something that is on the list that they want to see, they're not going to ask you for it anymore. They're just going to reject it, and it's your job to figure it out and reapply. That's the kind of thing that we're seeing, is it's not less flexibility, less asking questions, trying to understand what you're providing. And that started a little bit even before the current prime minister. That started, there's the name, and I'm not gonna name names, but I see on the rejection slips that I see for people whose visas got rejected, it's under the name of the person in the consulate who is rejecting, and not necessarily the person reading the application, but like the person in charge of consular services. That person has changed, and some of these procedural changes have deteriorated, let's say, since her. Cheryl, will an Airbnb reservation for several months be sufficient for the application process? Okay, so this is a question we get all the time, and we talk about this in Foolproof French visas. For the visa application, you want to or for establishing residency in France and validating your visa, you need to find long-term housing with a primary residence lease as quickly as you possibly can after arriving in France so that you validate your visa to a long-term address where you can get mail. This is really important because you need to establish utility bills and rent receipts in your name, especially to get on the healthcare system. This is another area where there have been no overt changes in laws or policies, but where we can see that the application of how they're processing requests to join the French healthcare system is really being scrutinized. And so they really want to see utility bills in your name showing consumption at a fixed address where you have a lease when you are registering for the French healthcare system. Our recommendation for temporary address on the visa application is 4 to 6 weeks. Use that time to get a long-term lease, and do not validate your visa. There's certain admin that you don't do until you have that lease squared away. I was going to add something else to that too. In certain cities, like if you're looking in Nice, if you're looking in like Montpellier, if you're looking in Paris and you're being really picky, then I would say 6 to 8 weeks for the Airbnb, but you really want to try to get it sorted out as soon as possible. Because the other thing too, and this depends a little bit, like if you're setting up a self-employment activity, for example, you need to show at the end of your first year, you need to submit your renewal application 2 months before your visa expires. In order to do that, you need to show that you've registered your business, that you've started declaring your income, that you're earning money, etc. And all of that doesn't start until you register your business. Registering your business doesn't start until you have a permanent address and can get mail, because they're going to send you stuff by mail as well. If you put off these different admin steps, you end up potentially having difficulty renewing your visa because of not getting settled in right away or not starting these different admin procedures right away. For the ex-prefecture, can you give us an estimate on how much time it will take once we have submitted the OFI appointment? No. I cannot give any time estimates for processing of anything in any prefecture. It depends on the location, the number of people at that time, the phase of the moon, the number of fonctionnaires, how many people are on maternity, sick leave, strike, whatever. There's no way to predict, even prefecture to prefecture, even year to year, the same month. It's impossible to predict how long things are going to take. Lisa, I'm single and retired. My home in Florida is currently on the market. I'll be moving to Massachusetts if my property sells. I will not have my name on utilities in Massachusetts at the friend's place. So you don't need to provide proof of address at the visa application, and you can go to any VFS office in the US. So as long as you're applying for your visa in a country where you have residency, by that I mean like a valid visa or green card or residence permit of some kind, or you're a citizen, you have a passport of that country, you can go to any visa application location. So if you're going to go, for example, if you have lived in Florida, but you're going to go in Boston because that's where you're staying, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to provide evidence. When you are filling out your visa application, it doesn't really matter what residential address you put on it. You will pay for a FedEx envelope at your visa appointment for your passport to be sent back to you. And then there you just put the address where you want it mailed. It doesn't even have to be the place where you're staying. If you're going to visit a family member and you're not going to be present where you live officially, you can have it sent anywhere. Carl, visitor visa. What are the consequences if the need arises to leave France and return before validating the long stay visa, like an urgent? So there's no restriction on traveling while you have your visa, even if you haven't validated your visa yet. But as I said, there is a ton of admin that needs to get done in the first year. We've actually put together two things. I put together an admin tracker that outlines some of the admin to do and or some of the admin to do. It it is a digital planner that has pages for each of the each of the admin things you need to do. And then we have something called the French Relocation Admin Success Survey. And that's something you complete during your first year in France after you've started your admin. And it gives you a little bit of a personalized checklist of, okay, these are the things that you've done well. These are the things that you still need to do and are still outstanding. These are the things that you need to think about. The admin tracker is a digital planner. It's actually in our Fast Track to France program, which I'm going to talk about a little bit because that is our Black Friday, Cyber Monday offer that we have going on right now. So I'll talk about that in a minute. But it has pages for all of the different admin things that you need to do so that you don't miss things. Must the validation of a long stay visa be completed within 3 months of arriving in France? Yes. So that's why you need to find a long-term address as soon as possible so that you're validating your visa to the long-term address. I have previously, in cases where people did not find a long-term address before the end of the 3 months, we have validated to temporary addresses like Airbnbs. I don't like to do that for a couple of reasons. One, the legality is a little bit dubious because you don't actually have any kind of lease. Two, it makes it complicated because then we have to go back in and change your address. And sometimes they take a long time to validate an address change. For example, if you don't find housing until month 5 and we have to go in and change your address in your ANEF account. ANEF is the website, the Administration Numérique des Étrangers en France. It can take them 2 to 3 months to change it. And while you have that in progress, you can't do anything else through your account. So if it comes time to renew your visa or you need to apply for a residency permit for your children, it can be difficult to get those things done. By validating, and I just want to clarify too, because I'm not, you didn't make this distinction, so I'm not sure what you mean by validating. By validating, I mean, we are creating your account on the ANEF website. We are putting in your address and the details about your visa type and where you're staying. They will then invite you for the OFI medical visit. If it's required for your visa type, they will invite you for any other OFI visits. If you're a salarié, if you're a self-employed person on a profession libérale, you'll have additional OFI visits to sign a contrat d'intégration républicaine and to do 4 integration days learning about France and how it works. So those invitations will come by email. Some people, I think our record, somebody got their invitation in an hour after we submitted it. Some people don't even get the invitations within the first year. So by validate, I mean the work that we can, the work that we can do to tell the French government that you have arrived here with your visa and that you have established a residence. And then everything else is a little bit out of our control, out of your control. Jackson, I am a scientist in biotech in the US and I'm interested in working in France for a biotech company. I have a master's degree and many years of experience. Do you know if France will follow the UK's lead and allow people with advanced degrees to work in the country visa free? They will not. I speak French but have never taken the DELF exam. That could potentially help in terms of things to put on your CV if you're actually applying to French companies. Is it necessary or will me interviewing in French be sufficient? It would probably help you get an interview to take the DELF. So in terms of the opportunities there, I mean, you could obviously be self-employed or set up a consulting company. We have one client in particular in biotech who has set up her own consulting company to work with clients from the US and France as a contractor or through she has a French SAS. So that's always an option because employers obviously can be a little bit reticent to hire foreigners. There are some hoops to jump through, even if you have a highly skilled worker. And so that eliminates some of the hoops and some of the expense. There's also, if you want to take a look at foolproof French visas, there's the scientifique chercheur if you're within a university setting or research institution. There's Carte Bleue Européenne if you are in biotech and your salary is high enough. If it's over about 54,000 euros, then the company does not have to get a prior work authorization in order to sponsor you for a visa. There's also the Jeune Entreprise Innovante, which I don't remember off the top of my head the particular salary requirement, but that is if a company is working on a technical innovative project, they have a certain approval from the Ministry of the Economy, and they are hiring you to work on specific technical, if you're working directly on the innovative aspects of the project. So those would be the visa types that you would want to look for. And sometimes, especially if you're looking at jobs in like startups and stuff, like they might not know about all of these visa types and what they would have to do. So having a little bit of knowledge and being willing to talk to them about the options can go a long way because if they don't know how to sponsor someone from abroad and they've never done it before, some of them might not be super enthusiastic about figuring it out. Kate, list of documents to be eligible for the healthcare system after 3 months. Okay, so that's something that we cover registering for the healthcare system in Fast Track to France. It's going to be documents about where you're staying, what type of employment you're doing. If you're not working, then obviously there's no employment information to provide at that time. It's going to be your passport, your visa validation, your birth certificate, any documents relating to your name change, a copy of your French bank IBAN. I just sent out like half a dozen healthcare registration packages to our clients today, so it's fresh in my mind. A copy of your lease, utility bill showing consumption. If you have children, you're giving their birth certificates and passports, and there are a couple of forms to fill out. The form itself is deceptively simple, but the amount of correspondence back and forth about between sending in the form the initial time and actually getting an attestation enrolling you on the system can be quite a lot. Registering on the French healthcare system is one of the modules in Fast Track to France, where we talk about how it works and what the timeline is. And it's one of the things where it takes as long as it takes. You need to start it in month 3 or at the end of month 3, because it could very well take up to the renewal in order to get you onto the system. And you want to avoid as much as possible having to pay for a second year of the private health coverage because the prices go up too on the private health coverage after the first year. Before a 12-month visa is up, how do I renew the visa or begin the process for residency citizenship? Okay, so that's going to be done online through your NF account. We were talking about today, we're working on a bunch of renewals for our clients right now. We tend to have a lot of people who arrive in September, January, and like May, June. So we're working on all of the renewals for our clients who had originally arrived in January, February, March. And it's funny because they don't request all of the documents. I don't know what the process is internally in the French government to make changes to their website, but they don't have upload forms for or upload fields for certain documents that they require. For example, the new thing that everybody has to sign is the contrat d'engagement à respecter les principes de la République. So basically, you have to say that you believe in liberté, égalité, fraternité, and that you are not going to disrespect the Republican symbols of Marianne and the tricolor flag and all of those things. And so there's no field. Now, this has been a requirement since July. There's no field to upload that document onto the website. So they say, okay, we'll upload it with, I don't know, the visa validation or something. And now they're coming back and they're requesting additional documents. Like today they requested the OFI medical certificate, but there's no place to upload that. And they don't tell you to upload that. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to make sure that you have all your paperwork available and ready to scan. And again, the exact document list as we have them now are in foolproof French visas, and then it depends on your visa type. Hillary, I'll be 70 when I arrive permanently in France, still in the US, trying to tie up loose ends. And I have purchased a home in France. I'm a visual artist and I have no guarantee that I'll make 70% of the French income minimum wage. I wasn't sure if I should just come in on a long stay visa as a retired person and not sell my art for the first year and then reapply, or should I get the talent passport visa prior to getting there? I want to be able to exhibit and sell my art and possibly teach English speaking art retreats. Yeah, so here's the thing. If you're going with any type of self-employment visa, you need to be able to make the money from that business type because that is what they are looking for to evaluate whether or not to renew your visa. It matters a little bit if you have money in the bank to pay for your expenses. Obviously, they are happy to see that you have a social security or check or money in the bank or a retirement investment account, something like that, and that even if you don't make money, you'll be able to pay your bills. But really, what they are looking for when you are self employed is they want to see initially, when you apply, they want to see opportunities in France for you to earn money working with French companies and individuals. And then when they are evaluating you for renewal, they are looking at did this person, one, do what they say they were going to do, two, make money from it, and three, did they make enough money to justify renewing the visa? So you have to make a little bit of a decision from the beginning. Is this a hobby or is it something that you're going to work on and build? And unfortunately, there's no way in France to have a visa enabling you to do something as a hobby. You have to register a business activity and declare your income from the first euro. There is no trying things out. There's no, oh, I'm on a visitor visa, but I sold this one painting. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And so you need to make the decision. You can change your visa status. If you come with a visitor visa, you have to first renew that visitor visa, wait to get the new card, and then submit a request for a change of status. That can take a very long time. My advice is that if you're going to be working or you want to work or sell your art or something, get that visa from the beginning because it is quicker and more straightforward to get it from the start from your consulate in your home country. If you decide that it is not for you and you don't want to continue doing that activity, you can always switch to a visitor visa more easily. Switching from working to not working is easier than switching from not working to working. Paula, how difficult is it to find a long-term rental as an American retiree with passive income? Is this easier to accomplish in specific areas of France? My best advice is to attend our webinar next week, where we're going to be talking with the woman who does many of our real estate searches, rental searches. It's not easy. I think you need to not necessarily base your where am I going to live in France decision around how easy it is to find housing because everybody finds a place to live eventually. Sibyline, I'm from Algeria. For the birth certificate, should I request a regular one or the S12, which is given once in a lifetime? Okay, so for the birth certificate, you need to give a birth certificate that is a long form birth certificate. That means it contains your full name, your parents' full names, the date, time, and place of your birth. If you have a birth certificate from a hospital that looks like it came with a Cabbage Patch Kid, you probably need to go to your state's vital records or your country's vital records and order a more official looking birth certificate with those pieces of information. I've seen a lot of like birth certificates where it looks like a diploma or like I said, something that comes with a Cabbage Patch Kid. Congratulations on your baby. And then has the baby's name and the hospital stamp, and that's it. And that is not going to be sufficient for French government purposes. So make sure you have a long-term birth certificate, your full name, your parents' full names, date, place, and time of birth. If you are born, it's best if it's in French or if it's in another EU language. If you were born in an EU country, for example, it's best to get a multilingual birth certificate with French on it. If you have the opportunity to get a certificate in French, great, do that. For the healthcare, they will take a birth certificate that is in English. You don't need to have it translated. For certain admin procedures, you do need it translated, and we tell you which ones they are. But typically it's going to be for things like requesting residency permits for your children. They want marriage certificates, birth certificates for the parents, and the birth certificates for the children, and all translated. Chris, for an address to be provided when registering in France on the long-term visa, can a purchase address like a P.O. box be used since some Airbnbs are very difficult to get physical mail and will possibly be moving a few times in the first 3 months while looking for a long-term rental or property to purchase? Want to find a solution to getting the OFI letter and the driver's license exchange. Okay, so you cannot use a P.O. box for any of this stuff. You need to find a long-term residential address and you need to do it as quickly as possible. Your OFI letter will come by mail. Your driver's license exchange, you're going to need a utility bill or some type of bill in your name to a mailing address. But a P.O. box or something similar is not a solution for you as a person. If you register a self-employment activity or a business, you can definitely use a business domiciliation service so that you can register your business. That is a very common thing, but you as a physical human person need to have a long-term address within those 3 months. So what I would say is you're not going to validate your visa and start the OFI process. You're not going to start the driver's license exchange process until you have that long-term address, and you need to have that long-term address within the first 3 months. Is one administrative office better than another with respect to processing documents, healthcare, residency renewals? No, they're all terrible. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but they're not. Don't make your decisions based on that. There's no way to compare. I mean, we work with offices all over France. We have clients probably in 60 different departments, and there's no comparing even the same. You can't even really compare the same department to itself because we have, for example, we have, I think, 3 different couples where they all had talent passport and talent passport spouse visas. They're all living in the Nice Valbonne area, and they all had totally different experiences, totally different waiting periods, and they all arrived within the same month. So even comparing one prefecture to itself is not a thing that is possible. Patricia, I'm from the US. My boyfriend is French and we're talking about moving in together. I want to go for a month at the start of 2025, see how that month goes, but I don't know at what point do I begin to prepare for my visa, and is the correct one the 1-year visa for now? Okay, so a couple of different things. You don't need a visa to go for a month. You might eventually need the ETS authorization. So ETS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. This is a lot of the US news organizations are talking about, oh, you're going to need a visa to go to Europe. That's not true. You will need to get this pre-authorization where basically you fill out a form online. It's supposed to cost €7 for 3 years. And It basically runs your name through Interpol to make sure you're not a wanted criminal. It will also run your name through, there's the new entry exit system, which was supposed to go into effect November 10th. There was a big announcement, but it's been pushed back again due to concerns about long lines especially in the UK ports. That's where they're going to be scanning your biometric data at your entry point into the EU, and they'll be able to track how long you have been in and out of the EU. So anybody who has been playing fast and loose with the Schengen rules, with the 90 out of 180-day rules, that is going away. And you need to make sure that you're going to be following the rules in 2025 and going forward. So you don't need a visa for a month. I would suggest come test it out, go back to the US. Now, here's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. If you are going to be staying with this person, you need to make sure that you have enough financial resources in your account in order to potentially find a place on your own if you need to, especially if you are not married or paxed. We cover this in Foolproof French Visas. The consulates are very suspicious, weary of people who are going to France to be with a partner that they're not that they're not legally attached to in any way. Theoretically, that person could kick you out on the street, and if you have no money, you would be in a very bad situation. So make sure you have your own financial resources. If you are married, that's going to facilitate getting a visa. It will be faster. If you are paxed, you need to be paxed and living together for 12 months before you're entitled to a private and family life visa. So those two would enable you to basically work without restriction. If you are not paxed or married, then you'll have to look at all the different visa types available to you, what you want to do for work. I would highly, highly, highly discourage you from moving to France without any type of income or ability to earn income on your own, especially if you're moving for a romantic partner, because it's just really about protecting yourself. And I've unfortunately seen some not so wonderful situations. Zora, I have an iPhone with an eSIM card, but want to understand the best way to handle a phone when visiting. Can I use my personal and current phone? Yes, if it's unlocked. If you have paid it off in full, then your US carrier should unlock it for you. Should I purchase a phone when I arrive in France? That's also a fine possibility. How does my carrier connection work? That will depend. I mean, I know people use AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon all the time in France, and you just have to check with your carrier about what plans they offer. Personally, I have Google Fi for my US number that offers coverage abroad as well. I don't use it I don't keep that number, that phone number on all the time because they will notice if you are using it consistently for more than 90 days abroad. They allow you to use it abroad, but not like indefinitely. So I only use it when I need to get text message confirmations, and then I turn it off when I don't. Lisette, I'm a single 57 and recently retired. Can I apply for a mortgage in France? I have a small pension, a decent amount of money that I can show, which can afford me to buy a property outright, but I would rather not eat it up on a purchase. Okay, so we actually did a webinar with Sharon Revel of CAPFI about 2 weeks ago, where we talked about getting mortgages. And so typically what we had discussed is if you have recurring revenue from a reliable source, like if you have a US pension in the US, they will take it into account. If you, but you are going to need to put up a significant portion, usually at least 40 to 50% of the purchase price. I'm going to put in the chat right now. We work with a bunch of different partners for everything from these mortgages to banking to currency transfer to things like that. So if you do want us to introduce you to the people that we work with, sometimes we get a commission, sometimes we don't, but we do like sending our people to professionals that we know are doing really good work. You are welcome to fill out the form that I just put in Google, and then with the Google form that I just put in the chat. And within the next couple of days, we'll send email introductions to anybody that you need to talk to. We're very excited to go back to France in January and continue our property search. I would like to apply for a long stay visa, but I'm concerned that obtaining one might be more tedious with the change in presidency. Should I apply now and cancel a January trip? I mean, that's really up to you. I don't think the change is going to be immediate, but I mean, it's even if you're purchasing property, my recommendation would be, don't either you wait for the property purchase to go through completely, or you come with an Airbnb, stay in an Airbnb, find a long-term lease, by that I mean a 12-month primary residence furnished lease, validate your visa to that. Sometime whenever the property purchase is finished, you can give notice when you have a 12-month lease that is a primary residence. You, as the tenant, only have to give 1 month notice. And you don't have to wait for the end of your lease to do that. The landlord has more restrictions. But as a tenant, you only have to give 1 month's notice. So if you know when your active sale is going to go through, you can give notice at the time that your property purchase goes through. And then when you're here, you can set up like mail for if you had rented a place and then you buy a place, you can set up mail forwarding with the post office to transfer everything to the home that you have newly purchased. So that would be my recommendation if you are a little bit in the middle of the process of trying to find a long-term property that you want to buy, but you don't necessarily want to delay your move until you find exactly the right place. That's what I would recommend doing. Do a certificat de mariage and de naissance need to be translated in French or in English? So anything that you're having translated, obviously it makes more sense to have it translated into French. If your document is already in English, I would say that it depends on what you're using it for, whether or not you need to have it translated. Does the 1,400 euros per month and per person have to be from Social Security, or can it be from personal savings? Yes, it can be a combination of savings and pension. If you're retired and you have things like a 401k, an IRA, those types of retirement accounts, it can also be from the amounts from those accounts. If you're not retired there, or you're not old enough to take withdrawals from those accounts, they're going to pay much more attention to your personal savings and income coming in from other sources. Steven, I'm retired with about 65,000 a year in income plus savings, but wish to be able to consult with US clients. What visa is needed? So that's going to be, it depends a little bit on the income type, but either that's going to be Profession Libérale Entrepreneur, which is going to have you set up as a micro-entrepreneur earning up to 77,700 euros per month. Or if your income is significantly higher than that, you have expenses, you could potentially set up a French company through a talent passport entrepreneur, or what I call a classic entrepreneur visa that doesn't require quite so much in terms of investment. So, passport talent entrepreneur, you have to register a French company, you have to invest at least 30,000 euros in the social capital of the company, meaning that that money is put into the company account to be used for the company's expenses. And then you need to show that you either have 5 years of professional experience or a master's degree. If you meet those criteria and you don't mind investing the 30,000, Passport Talent is absolutely the way to go. It used to be that it had the advantage they can give you up to 4 years when you get that visa type. It's a 90-day visa, and then they give you a carte de séjour that can be up to 4 years. It used to be they always gave American clients 4 years. Recently, we have noticed that it's 1 to 2 years. That's an example of a political change where nothing has really changed in the way that we've been preparing the applications, and we had the unfortunate, or some of our clients had the unfortunate surprise of not getting a carte de séjour for as long as they thought. Eric, we are US citizens and new French tax residents in 2024. We're retired and earn no French source income. We're going to file our first French tax declaration next year, but unsure if we should file the US taxes first or the French first. Can you comment? Okay, so this is going to really depend on your situation. So I'll answer for you, but I'll also answer generally the way you want to do it. If all of your taxable income is in the US, you're going to do your US taxes first. Make sure you get them done by the June 15th deadline for taxpayers living abroad. You get an automatic 2-month extension. And then, or even a little bit before that, because French tax deadline is usually early late May or early June, especially when it's your first tax declaration and you need to do it on paper. But you need your US numbers in order to file your French taxes. Now, if you don't have the final US tax numbers, like if you still only have a draft, it's okay to, I'm not going to say fudge because that's not what I mean. Like you're not making it up, but let's say you're not sure if your dividends were 20,000 or 21,000 or whatever. You're not going to pay taxes on them anyway, so who cares a little bit if you don't have French taxable income. If you do have French taxable income, it's going to impact your tax rate and the amount of tax you're going to pay on your French source income. So definitely don't fudge at all or estimate or anything if you have French taxable income. So in your situation, do the US taxes first, make sure they're done by early May so that you can file your French taxes on time. If you have French source taxable income, you are going to want to file an extension on your US taxes because you're going to need to have your French numbers finalized. You're going to need to have your French taxes typically. And then you can work with your accountant to determine, do you take the foreign earned income exclusion? Do you take the tax credit? Usually the tax credit is more advantageous if you're in France because the taxes here are higher than US taxes. So for example, as somebody who earns a salary and owns a company in France, my income is taxable in France. I have to know what those income numbers are. I don't get my French company's accounting report until late May to June, right? And I need to know, and I need to file my French taxes to know how much tax I'm paying on my salary and my French dividends, right? So I need to file my French taxes first and then put those numbers onto my US taxes. Whereas somebody, if most of your income is in the US, file your US taxes first, have those numbers for France. We will probably do again. Last year, I organized a French tax party where people with simple situations could come and work on their French taxes with me. And we spent about 2.5, 3 hours going through people in your situation, basically retirement, pensions, interest, dividends, things like that. Nothing too complicated. If it gets too complicated, I can't do it for you. You have to go to an accountant, and I'll tell you. Alexandra, if I get a long stay visa and stay 6 months or decide to move back to the US, am I a tax resident? That depends. Are they going to come after you if you leave after 6 months and never come back to France? Probably nobody is going to figure it out. But technically, you become a tax resident when you arrive in France with the intention to stay long term. Do I have to inform the authorities if I get a long stay visa and then leave? How long can I leave France for if I want to return? So if you're leaving France permanently and you never validated your visa, then there's nothing to do because your long stay 12-month visa is invalidated after 90 days if you never validate it. That being said, it would be really not that great to apply for a visa that you don't intend to use or aren't sure if you're going to use. So I would say you need to figure out your plans first before you start thinking about applying for a visa. Steve, how can we find a realtor to represent us in locating a long-term rental house near MSC that meets our criteria? So I would suggest filling out the referrals form that I put in the chat. We work with somebody, she does work remotely with people all over France, and we've had clients with some really good success. Her work is more advocacy for people with foreign paperwork, and she knows the market really well, and she knows what she can get for people. Bonnie, do you recommend getting a verifiable travel itinerary or refundable airline ticket for visa application? You do not need to provide any airline tickets with your visa application, and please do not. The biggest reason I see that a consulate will issue a temporary non-renewable visa instead of a renewable long-term visa is like providing a return ticket. So don't. Do you think it would be safe to plan a flight in June with a visa interview in May? Usually I advise people to leave a month between visa application and departure. It's almost always, I mean, everybody has their passport back normally within 2 weeks. Kathleen, I understand I need 30,000 euros for capital investment as part of the visa process. So this is specifically for a talent passport entrepreneur. This is not for every visa. It's only a talent passport entrepreneur, you're putting the funds into escrow for your future French company that you're setting up. Do I just need to show that I have the funds if I don't have any capital expenses I need to invest it in? It needs to go into an escrow account before you apply for the visa. In fact, before you need to invest, before you need to request approval from the Ministry of the Economy. So when you are applying for a talent passport entrepreneur visa, first we put together the business plan. Then we work with an attorney who drafts the company articles of incorporation. He helps you to invest the funds into an escrow account in the name of the future company. Then we request, on the basis of that, we take all of those documents, we answer a bunch of questions, we submit everything to the Ministry of the Economy. The Ministry of the Economy issues a certificate saying that they believe that your business plan or your business project is real, serious, and viable. And then when you have that, you can take all of those documents with a couple of other things in a big stack of papers to the consulate to apply for your visa. When you are applying for a talent passport entrepreneur, I would say we need at least 6 months, ideally, in order to get everything ready. Probably you want to start working with us 6 to 8 months in advance. Once you arrive in France and register the company, that capital that you've invested will be transferred into the company's account and it becomes the company's money, which means that if you want to use it for something, if you want to pay yourself with it, you're going to pay social charges on it. If you want to use it for business expenses, you can do that and it will be a deduction to the company. And you need to make sure that you're not going to need it for expenses right away to set up because you're one, you'll have to, if you pay it out to yourself, you're going to have to pay taxes on it. And two, it will take a little while after arriving in France for the company to be registered, for the bank account to be set up, for the funds to be transferred in, etc. I'm an entrepreneur and have no plans to close my business, but in the future, if something happens and I need to get a full-time job with a company in France while living there, would I be able to apply for a different visa type of visa in order to work? So when you have a passport talent entrepreneur visa, you are only allowed to work for the company that you have set up as part of the visa process. You're not able to just go out and get a job. If you were to get a job, and have a company sponsor you, you would need to switch your visa status as part of that, and you would have to close your company. It's not really a feasible thing to do. Now, if you wanted to add additional related activities to your company so that you can invoice a different type of client, we certainly have clients who have pivoted their business activity because they needed to make more money. I'm thinking specifically about a client who came with a product-based business with a really great product. Unfortunately, she needed to earn money faster than the product was selling, and she had been a consultant in a previous position, and so pivoted her business and ended up doing that. Like, that's possible. It would require, changing the company documents and things like that, but as a rule, you don't want to plan on changing your visa status. Now, the other thing I will say is if you have been in France for more than 5 years and you end up with a 10-year resident card, that enables you to do any type of work that you want at this stage. Again, this is one of the things that was a little bit on the radar of some of the legal changes that certain deputies wanted to make. But at this stage, having a 10-year resident card enables you to do any type of work. And if you ran your business to the point of getting a 10-year card and then you wanted to get a full-time job, you could. And then it's up to your work contract if you're allowed to keep your company open or if it's considered competition or whatever. I'm just going through the questions that are in the chat. We are not halfway through the questions yet, and it is already time. So I'm going to do the best I can, but we're not going to get through all of them. And I think this is now that we have 50 people or more attending the Q&As, I think we're going to have to cherry pick the questions a little bit. Hello, once I apply for my visa and go to France to buy a house, am I required to stay in France? I will need to return to the US to finish logistics here. Okay, so you can travel back and forth, but you do need to pay attention to the admin that needs to be done. And I think if we're going to be working together, we can keep an eye on that for you and make sure that you get everything done. But you do need to keep in mind that you need to be spending significant time in France. If I'm waiting for my French home to close, can I stay out of the country where I don't have to spend money renting? It's best to maintain an ad once you arrive in France with your visa and find a long-term residence, you need to maintain a residence in France and then change your address when you move to a different French address. If you don't have an address at all in France, that's not great. We're moving to France permanently, so I will apply for a long-term visa. My wife is a French citizen. Will she need to purchase health insurance for the first year? We have US insurance that okay, so there's no healthcare requirement for spouses of French citizens. Spouse of EU citizen is different, but spouse of French citizen, there's currently no requirement. But she will have to wait 90 days to get on the French system, and so will you if you're not working. Your tax residency begins the day that you arrive in France with the intention of staying long term. So just say that it begins the day your visa starts. Okay, I want to take a minute here because I see that there are tons of questions that I'm not going to be able to get to, but I want to take a minute here to talk about some of the services we offer. So, if you're on our email list, you will have seen that we're doing a Black Friday promotion on our course Fast Track to France, which is an 11 module course that covers the process of moving to France from the mindset to what I call the 9 areas of transformation. And that's where we go into the different admin things that you need to plan around when you are planning your move to France. So things like how will my career work if I'm moving to France? What are my visa options depending on the type of work that I do? What are the financial planning, tax planning, estate planning, etc. questions that I need to ask if I am planning a move to France? Now, for things like that, we're not accountants, we're not lawyers, but we have worked with many of them. I worked in taxes for a couple of years before I started this business, and so I know the questions that people are asking and the things that you need to take into account, and you need to talk to a professional with. Things like how to enroll your children in school, how to bring your pets, how to import your belongings, all of that stuff that you need to take a look at, have a checklist for, understand what you need to do. We've put it all together in this program, Fast Track to France. So it's currently €100 off through tomorrow night. So it's $397. And I'm going to put the link in the chat, but it should also be in your email. And this is our most comprehensive resource. So any of our clients who are working with us on a full service relocation package get access to this program. And what it does is it complements all the stuff that we are doing. For example, we're taking care of enrolling our clients in the French healthcare system, but there's a video about how the French healthcare system works, how a mutuelle works to help them to understand the process. We can't take our clients' pets to the vet for them when they arrive, but we can give them a checklist about what they need to do before they leave, how to transport their pets, what they need to do when they arrive in France. And so it goes along quite nicely with planning a move. I don't want to be super advertorial on here, so I'm going to go back to some of the questions, but that is on sale for €397 for one more day. And it's the kind of thing too, just the last comment I'm gonna make, it's the kind of thing too where no matter where you are in your planning process, we specifically made it not a big investment so that even if you're 3 years out, you can already be doing the research and looking into the checklists and things like that and understanding what the process is going to be like. And ideally, it will help you to plan your move and your timeline a little bit. And then if you do go on to work with us within 90 days, you can apply it to the cost of one of our higher end relocation packages. Okay, back to the questions. I will do as many as I can in the next like 15 minutes. And if you have to jump off, there is going to be a recording. It usually takes a couple days for us to edit it. So please don't email Lacey at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning when she's just getting to her desk. Okay, Megan, what are the steps required for the spouse of an EU citizen to begin working in France? They just have to show up with their passport and get hired. Assuming the EU spouse is employed, exercising their EU movement rights properly, does he need to wait until his residency permit is processed to work? Yeah, so the current US-based employer will employ him in their French branch or enterprise. Okay, so the best thing to do, so the EU spouse doesn't have to do anything in particular. The non-EU spouse has to request a residency permit within 90 days of arriving in France. And in order to do that, they need the EU spouse's proof of healthcare coverage and proof of financial resources. So typically that either means you have a private policy and significant savings, or that person has already started working and can provide those documents related to their employment contract. It does take a while for the non-EU spouse's residency card to be processed. Technically, they're not supposed to be working until in France until they have that card. Pat, how complicated is it to bring two dogs from the US to France for residency? As long as they're not category 1 or category 2 dogs that are deemed dangerous, it's not that difficult. We do have videos on this in Fast Track to France. They need the rabies shot, they need the EU compatible chip before they come, and then once they arrive, you have to register them with iCAD through a local vet. Andy, in applying for a long stay tourist visa in Paris, I assume you mean a visitor visa. I will be using Airbnb as my address. You need to find a long-term lease in within 90 days. My recommendation would be sooner than that. Am I tied to the address I initially used to apply for the visitor visa? No. So whatever address you put on the visitor visa on the visa application, you can stay there for only a couple of weeks. Like you don't have to validate your visa to the address you put on your application. Jane, do you have the Entrepreneur Liberal Professions visa interview at the French consulate in the US nearest you or at the VFS Global office? All visa applications are submitted to a VFS office in the US. And it's not really an interview, it's more handing them a pile of paperwork. For the entrepreneur and self-employment visa specifically, they do not know, like the people who work for VFS do not really understand what they're processing. And so they're not super familiar with the documents that you're giving them. It's really important to go with a very well prepared application. What international shipping services do you recommend? We have a list of shipping companies in Fast Track to France. We also, if you're in the Americans in France Facebook group, you can search the group. People ask that question all the time and people give reviews of what they used. Patricia, is the long-term visitor visa considered the retirement visa? I believe yes. There is technically a retraité visa, but that is if you have worked in France and you are receiving a French pension from the French government or a French company. Can a retirement visa be converted to a profession libérale visa once you are already in France? Yes, but you have to renew your visitor visa first and then change your status, and it takes a really long time. So I do not recommend doing it like that. Is it true that from the time you apply for your visa, you have 3 months to prepare everything for your move and your travel plans, not even knowing if you will receive that visa? Well, you need to make sure that you're going to get your visa. So you can apply for your visa up to 90 days before your departure date. You don't have to apply that early. Most times we recommend people leave about a month between their application date and their departure date. But you need to make sure that you have a good application so that you're going to be approved. Lucy, if you move to France with debt, does that cause any problems with getting a visa? No, they're not checking your credit score. Bernadette, if I'm a US citizen living in Croatia with a temporary residence permit, can I apply from Croatia? Yes. So I don't actually know off the top of my head where the consulate is that serves Croatia. Not all countries have a French consulate. For example, our clients who have lived in Portugal have had to go to Madrid. So it might be that you have to go to a nearby country to apply. But yeah, if you have a residence permit for a particular country, you can apply to the French consulate that serves that country without returning to the US. Have you already worked with US citizens who are living in another EU country to apply? Are these requests successful? Yes, we have a lot of clients from Portugal right now who are US citizens who moved to Portugal and now are moving to France. And we haven't had a rejection of any of those yet. Carolyn, we are a retired couple and want to stay longer than 90 days on our next trip. I'd like to move to France, but husband hasn't been ready, though he may be weakening. Oh, get some cheese in him, that'll weaken him. Even if I persuaded him to move, we'd still have to come back and sell our place. So we're better off applying for a 12-month visa or 5 to 6 months. It really depends. It really depends. I would say we want to have a chat about the timeline and what you would have to do. But I mean, if he's not totally on board, you might want to do a temporary thing first before you sell your house, then go back and sell your house and then come back. Lauren, I was told mid-November I'm receiving a 4-year carte de séjour and I'm waiting to receive the email telling me it's ready to pick up and post. So you're probably going to get a text message to the French phone number that you used in your NF account. So you want to make sure that your French phone number is the one listed on your NF account. Once I have it, what do I do? Apply for art business status, after which I can open a business bank account at my bank. Lauren, since you have Complete French Business Incubator, you have videos in there about how to register your business activity. You do not have to wait for your carte de séjour, you can register already with your visa. Once I have my carte de séjour, can I apply for the French healthcare program, but I can't get a doctor before then. So you do not have to be registered in the French healthcare system to get a doctor. You can make an appointment with a doctor through Doctolib. It will be about 30 euros out of pocket, and you'll have to pay for your prescription out of pocket as well. But prescription drug costs in France are a very small fraction of what they are in the US. So it's probably not going to be catastrophically expensive. Registering your business activity will begin the process to get you on the French healthcare system, so you shouldn't have to do anything separate for that. Karen, I am British living in the UK, but previously lived in France for 25 years. I wish to return within the next 2 years. My sons are French, dad French, both born in France and live in Toulouse. I'm a French taxpayer as I rent out properties in Toulouse. What type of visa can I apply for in my case? It doesn't sound to me like you have any special advantage in applying for visas. For property rentals, it will depend on how much income you're getting for those, whether they're considered professional and would be considered a business, or whether it would be considered more passive. But either way, I think probably a visitor visa. If there's a different type of work that you want to do, let's have a chat about what other visa type you might be eligible for, or take a look at foolproof French visas. Marla, I'm interested to know more about the medical appointment at OPI. My husband is a wheelchair and has Parkinson's. A big reason why we came to France is to get him better health care. So OPI is not eliminating people from being able to live in France. It's to orient you to the French system, and it's to check that people have received preventative health care. And a lot of the people who are immigrating to France come from countries where they have not received vaccines and preventative health care on a regular basis throughout their life. And so that's really the goal. It's not to eliminate people who have pre-existing conditions. A pre-existing condition is not a thing in France. My 15-year-old will likely begin by attending virtual school with his current school system. He has to be enrolled in French school. It's mandatory to apply for the visa. There are very few opportunities for homeschooling now, and that would not be accepted in France. He doesn't need to renew his passport if it expires in April 2026, but yeah, you can just go ahead and start the process now. If you want to apply in January, you're a little late, but it's probably doable. If you want us to be handling it, if you want to have a conversation about that, then we need to have that like this week. But yeah, he'll need to be pre-enrolled in school, unfortunately. You'll be able to renew his US passport through the embassy in France. Will a bigger bank account positively increase our chances of visa acceptance? My job will not allow me to work remotely abroad, so I won't have income when I first arrive. I'm concerned about my current cash assets meeting the minimum requirement. I wanted to confirm we had our visas before selling our house, but if I sell them, we'll have well over the minimum. You need to make sure that you have enough for your whole family, and not having enough can definitely or will definitely mean a rejection. I'm a little bit unclear on. Oh, and then you say something about disability payments. So yeah, if you have regular income coming in, that will be totally fine, even if you don't have a huge cash balance, because you can show the regular income. Yeah, I think we need to get on a call to talk through your timeline and what you require. So you also mentioned something about your job not allowing you to work remotely, so you won't have an income, but then what visa are you going to get that's going to allow you to have an income? Because it's not really clear from your questions. Is a translated birth certificate needed for this type of visa? We don't say which type of visa, but generally they're not looking for a birth certificate with a visa application. Birth certificate is for healthcare and potentially for renewal. Okay. Let me go through the comments that were submitted in the chat. I ordered a copy of my long-form birth certificate 2 weeks ago. The one I have is not within the last 5 years. It will not be mailed to me until February 24th. Even though I'm not sure they will need it, I ordered a divorce decree from 98. I won't get that until March. So if you need these documents, order them now. Yeah, you need to order them in advance. You don't need apostille for most things. That would be more like if you're getting married or applying for French nationalization. But yeah, you definitely need to order the documents in advance. For the healthcare, they don't necessarily care if the document is old, but they do want, for example, the different name change documents. So that's actually when I talk with potential clients about helping them with their relocation. One of the first questions that we go over in our initial call is, do you have these documents? Have you changed your name? If you've changed your name, do we have paperwork to back it up? Because those documents can take a long time to order, and I don't want to find out when I'm ready to send in your healthcare application that, oh, you never changed back to your maiden name after your first marriage, and so now you need to have copies of this divorce certificate from 25 years ago. We had somebody who, I've talked to somebody, I won't name names, but who just totally didn't tell us about a marriage. Like, just completely slipped her mind, and then we were like, "We need documentation for this, please." I was told that a naturalization certificate can be accepted by France because through adoption, I do not have a birth certificate. California cannot create a document eligible for apostille without a court order. Okay. You mentioned getting a lease within the first 3 months of arrival. What if we plan to have roommates and we plan to sublet a room in a larger apartment and my name is not on the lease? That is a bad idea for visa purposes. You need to get your name on some bills. You can get a document from the person whose name is on the lease that they are subletting to you, and or that they are leasing to you, and you have, they give you an attestation d'hébergement. But technically, even if you have roommates, you should have a lease with the landlord. You should Subletting is not allowed without authorization from the landlord, so you should have some kind of document. Stella, for student visas, what are the timelines for application? Graduation date is June 2026. Do we need to start applying in fall 2025 or 2026? Yeah, so probably, yeah, fall 2025. So that means that if you need to take any exams like the DELF, start looking at dates now for the spring and early fall. Can I sign a long-term lease in advance of having a bank account set up? If not, can you address setting up a bank account? Yes, you do not need a French bank account to get a lease. Luckily, in 2024, we have many options available to us for transferring funds internationally. So you can do that directly from your Wise or your Currencies Direct or whatever account to the landlord or to the agency. And then you can set up your French bank account later. You cannot open a French bank account without some type of economic tie to France, which typically means having your visa and having long-term residence here. So we work with AXA a lot in setting up bank accounts, but it's not even worth trying to start that process until either if you buy a house or you're setting up a company, that's a little bit different. You can do that sooner. If you are not doing either of those things, then you need to wait until you do certain other admin before you can do that. I do not recommend using, well, first of all, Wise, it's not a bank and it's not French. By setting up a bank account, I mean a physical bank account in a French bank that has a French IBAN where you are keeping money. You need to either be transferring 1,500 euros per month, or you need to have a balance of about 20,000 euros when you go to renew your visa. If you don't have that, they're going to ask you for your foreign bank statements and they're going to ask you for certified translations, in which case you're going to pay like 50 euros a page to get your bank statements translated, which you do not want to do. That's priority on your checklist when you arrive. And we cover bank accounts too and Fast Track to France. The Fast Track to France is 397 euros. How much to obtain the full services? So I will go ahead and link to our packages. It depends on the visa type because some are more work than others. Our retirement package for a couple is 4,500 euros. Typically, what I would advise if you want to consider working with us, obviously it's great to come on the Q&As and get to know me and my way of working. Check out our packages online. You can schedule a 1-hour consultation with me, and I will apply that as a credit if you sign up for a package within 90 days. So the 1-hour consultation is 297 euros, and then we'll give you a credit if you do sign up for one of our full service packages. Okay, all the questions in the chat, and I'm just going to pull up the Q&A box. Karina, can I apply for a summer internship in talent chercheur and not have to return to the US if my internship ends when my talent chercheur visa begins? I would say you want to just apply for the talent chercheur visa directly. And I guess the main challenge with that is that you wouldn't be able to do a full 6-month internship. Because unfortunately, there's not enough time to validate one visa type and switch it already in France. So the alternative would be like doing a 6-month internship visa, going back to apply for a new visa, and then coming back. Because unfortunately, the time it would take to switch your visa status from intern to talent chercheur would be several months, and you don't want to be stuck on an intern visa for longer than you need to be. Patricia, can I find an apartment for around 1,200 euros per month in Paris, studio or one bedroom? Probably a studio. I'm not super up on the prices in Paris right now, but that seems one bedroom seems like a little bit of a stretch, but maybe. All right, a lot of these are repeats. So guys, just so you know, when you submit the question to in advance, I have them all in a Word document. So you don't need to submit them again in the chat or the Q&A. So I already have them. How much money do I need in the bank for a long stay visa? I assume you mean visitor visa. So that's 1,400 euros per month times 12. So about 18,000 euros or the equivalent in dollars is the best option. For a family of 3, I would say you want about 150% of that. So let's say 2,000 a month. It's not quite double. You'll see on the internet some people say, "Oh, it's 1,400 a month per person," and, you can provide the same bank statements for both family members, but it's really technically the 1,400, and actually it might be around 1,430 now because minimum wage just went up. Technically, the net minimum wage is valid for up to a family of 3. It's really not advisable because it would be really difficult. People do live on that, but it would be really difficult. So I would suggest having more for more family members. And then technically it goes up about 10 to 15% with every additional family member. So if you have more children, you need an additional 10 to 15% per kid. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. I do want to reiterate that our program, Fast Track to France, is our comprehensive program that outlines all of the admin that you need to do to prepare for your move. The idea is that we want you to have a holistic and comprehensive plan for your move. So you're not just focusing on getting here, but you really understand all of the things that you need to do to shift your life from where you live now to living in France, and that you're going to create a sustainable relocation to France. And ideally, without all of the stress that comes from not knowing if you've done everything, not really knowing what to do once you get here, not knowing what all of the requirements are. This program also would be applicable if you do want to upgrade within 90 days. It would be applicable to as a credit to any of our other service packages. Our service packages are on our website. And if you have more questions about your personal situation, want to talk through a timeline, want to make sure you have the right visa type mapped out, etc., you can schedule an individual consultation with me through the website, and then we'd apply that as a credit as well. So if you're not sure when you want to get started, if you have questions before you select a package, the best way to do that is for us to have a conversation so that you can make an informed decision and not rush into anything that you might not be ready for. Our next Q&A will be in 2025. I can't believe I'm saying that. January 6th, I believe, is the date, the first Monday in January. And I will see you then. Same time, same place. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Have a great evening and hope to see you in Fast Track to France or on call. Bye.